I'm sure that there are players out there that are attracted to retro-styled graphics/visuals despite not having been around their heyday, but for me, it largely has to do with nostalgia. Despite getting into gaming during the SNES/Genesis era, I wasn't able to enjoy gaming as freely as I do nowadays. You could say that I'm making up for what I missed out on back then, so it's easy to give games such as Parking Garage Rally Circuit a try. Like I've been saying, I really enjoyed the heavily stylized retro visuals. It's one thing for a game to be retro-styled, but it's even better when that's just a piece of the puzzle. There are plenty of retro-styled games out there, but it's as if going for that look is enough when that's really just the start of making your game visually appealing. This also spilled over into the menus, and I like that. It also helped that they were easy to navigate. The same could be said for the quick and easy customization options for your car's visuals. Sometimes less really is more, and though I'm sure that some out there appreciate being able to micromanage the hell out of an in-game object's appearance, I'd rather spend as much time as I can on hands-on gaming. Before playing PGRC, one thing that greatly stood out to me was its great and over-the-top use of drifting. I'm sure that for die-hard racing enthusiasts, drifting is overrated, but it also helps that I love Initial D. It also helped that it was really easy to drift and have great control over it. Not only was it visually appealing and well-functioning, it helped that drifting gave me a boost. At later points during my time with PGRC, I started to really take advantage of that and hit great speeds. Unfortunately, in PGRC it feels like going really fast is penalized. It's too easy to lose control or crash, even when I was concentrating on drifting and more or less had my wheels hooked onto the track. With this being a racing game, I expected driving at nearly twice the regular speed to be rewarded. If anything, that goes to show that PGRC isn't like other arcade racers out there. Its main focus is on drifting, so it makes sense why the game tries to box you into that style of driving. That's true, but part of me still thinks that it would have been great to have been able to combine drifting with driving at high speeds, especially when on specific tracks. Like level design in other games and genres, there are pros and cons that make it clear when a racing game has good track design. With PGRC, it was easy because it's heavily based on drifting. What's interesting is that despite heavily focusing on drifting, the tracks aren't one-dimensional. There are some tracks that are similar to one another, and some players might even think to themselves, this is just the same car with a different coat of paint. But then again, the game is called Parking Garage Rally Circuit. I knew that I enjoyed the tracks in PGRC because I didn't mind repeating them over and over again. I'd say that the majority of the time I spent with PGRC was due to repeating some tracks and wanting to improve my lap time. It also helped that it was very easy to restart and try again, so I felt encouraged to repeat runs. I'm also somewhat sure that accelerating at a specific time just before the race started led to getting a momentary yet helpful boost. Once I realized this was doable and got the hang of it, I would try to make sure it always happened. There were some occasions where I'd be off time or distracted, so I'd just restart the race. Unfortunately, I ended up encountering a game-breaking crash when restarting levels repeatedly within a short time. More specifically, it happened when quickly pausing and restarting. I wouldn't go so far as to say that this was a huge issue, but it did create frustrating moments. I reached out to the dev and it seems to have been taken care of for its eventual release. You could say that the majority of my frustrations with PGRC have to do with it not being the kind of racing game that I wanted it to be. The blame for that is more on myself than on PGRC. I was trying to box it into what I've experienced with other racers, but at the same time, PGRC also did some boxing in of its own. I enjoyed the tracks, but I was disappointed to see that jumping over stretches of track was penalized for missing checkpoints. Chances are that's due to this game focusing on the rally style of racing, but at the same time, this is a retro-styled arcade racing game. I could see this being appropriate for a rally racing sim, but PGRC isn't that kind of game. I can understand wanting to offer something close to what that kind of racing is like, but at the same time, I was frustrated to see that there were so many opportunities to spice up the game's gameplay, only for that to be discouraged. I think it's possible for a mode without these penalties to encourage more creative gameplay, and overall, lead to more playtime. The game has the elements for this, but like I've been saying, they feel stifled. I realize that it's possible for a game to be somewhere towards the middle and not have to pick one extreme over another, but if I see a certain kind of playstyle is doable, I want to be able to play how I want. Moving along from my gripes, I liked how PGRC made use of different types of cars. There were really only 3 types, but there were enough pros, cons, and overall differences to note that a lot of time went into making each one be its own thing. The heavier cars were my favorite because they offered a good mix of speed and handling. The ultra-fast cars were thrilling, but it was too easy to lose control with them if I happened to do one wrong move. Unlocking the cars was one part of PGRC's replay value. In order to unlock 2 of the 3 types, I'm pretty sure that I had to beat each track while coming in first through third. Having to unlock the cars this way forced me to become familiar with PGRC in more ways than one. Not only was I learning the ins and outs of tracks, I was also figuring out specific details about PGRC's mechanics. For example, I eventually realized how helpful it was to try to connect my drifts as smoothly as possible. This helped prevent losing control, which then led to me being able to improve my lap times. It's possible that being able to spam drifts in such a way may turn some off, but I was fine with how that worked. It once again goes back to the idea that this is more of an arcade racer than a sim. While I wasn't happy with every part of Parking Garage Rally Circuit, I ended up absolutely loving it. I played through most of it in one night, and my finger was left hurting from pressing down on the trigger in order to keep accelerating. Chances are that I won't keep going back to this one as I do with other games, but it did enough to leave me thinking that there's still plenty of playtime to be had from it, if I were to decide to play it again. Leaderboards being present in PGRC makes it so that there should always be reasons to try to challenge yourself and others, but there's also trying to improve my command of its mechanics. Though I definitely recommend Parking Garage Rally Circuit, it's worth saying that it works for and against itself. I'm sure that some will enjoy a racer that largely has a lot to do with drifting, but if you're like me and want to be able to play around with aspects of a game that are implicit rather than explicit, chances are that you'll encounter some degree of frustration. Like I previously mentioned, none of those perceived flaws are big enough to leave me thinking, I need to stop playing this game, or something similar. So, if you've liked enough of what you've seen/heard, give Parking Garage Rally Circuit a try. How do you feel about games that greatly focus on a specific mechanic? Do you like it when a game has features that may or may not have been intended? If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you very much for watching.